UBC Television. The quest, giver of life, Alpha without Omega. I am Africa.
Hail to Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, a land with the world's most beautiful, captivating features. Hills, mountains and valleys, the enigmatic animal species in the wild. A land where Africa is condensed into one small country with authentic endowments of nature and perfect safari. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, is without the crowds with abundant primates, wildlife and stunning scenery. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, takes you beyond the guidebooks, the known features and gives you the insights unmatched. Keep it UBC TV, where we inspire Uganda with the authentic beauty and nature of our motherland. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Discover the fountain.
The National Budget Speech Reading for the financial year 2023-2024 will take place on the 15th of June 2023 at Kololo Independence Grounds under the theme Full Monetization of Uganda's Economy through Commercial Agriculture, Industrialization, Expanding and Broadening Services, Digital Transformation and Market Access. Follow the conversation on the hashtag KnowYourBudget23.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwao.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration, information, and sensitization of the public from the various sources such as inspirational profiles.
Having a disability is not inability.
Professional guidance.
There is no special antiretroviral therapy that is given specifically for discordant couples.
And of course, politics.
Don't you see anywhere that you would give a credit in the fight against COVID?
My role.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. Today, 15th of June, 2023, a Thursday at that. It's going to be a very, very interesting, but also very eventful day here in Uganda. Quite a number of things that we will be seeing in the media for a couple of hours and also hours away from now. We know that the national budget for the financial year 2023-2024 is expected to be presented and read today. Very many Ugandans have really taken a keen interest in this one, and most definitely we will be waiting to see what has to be said. What are the wins and who is going to be missing out on this financial cake? We'll be looking into all the sectors, of course, as we go on and on and on. But also allow me to congratulate the people of Bukedea. Yesterday we did see the results come out, and now we do have Mary Cole, who emerged to be the winner in this very specific seat or position. And of course she was coming in on the NRM ticket. I did see a number of celebrations, but of course you know that there will definitely be people who are not okay with this contesting the results. So, I mean, it's a whole long process, but I know that my colleagues here have quite a lot to share on that. Very, very interesting. Speaking of the budget, we also did see the East African community present the East African budget that is standing at about 364 billion Ugandan shillings. I can tell you we are talking money, and money is going to be talked about by us. Well, speaking of us, definitely being joined by Robert, Molin, and Felix. Very, very happy to have you here. Molin, good morning.
Well, a very good morning to you, Philomena. It is quite a great Thursday, I should say. One of those Thursdays you think and you're like, oh, how is this week going to end? And just to throw in a little bit of warmth, from last night, I was on Twitter enjoying people talking about Uncle Mo's tweets about people giving opinions in the Hamis Kigundu case.
Yes.
So this guy is expecting anyone who does not know anything about 120 billion to not give an opinion. He says, my dear,
if you don't know what it feels like to
even have a billion,
yes,
how dare you have an opinion in a case where someone, an individual, is taking on a bank on 120 billion. But then again, we are Ugandans. Everyone's business we mind. So sometimes it's okay to do these things. But I was saying a lot of comments flocking around, people saying, no, this guy has made a statement. And you see, they borrowed it from Uncle Mo's video. And this guy did it way back. That was 2020. And it is now reflecting now because the case is again on the table. But had you seen even how I was listening to some local media, and there were guys that were tabling it and giving opinions, but you see this kind of money, you see banks have this kind of, I'm like, guys, come on.
The only money we should have an opinion about is our budget, 52.7 trillion. Any Ugandan is allowed to talk about it.
My dear, even those who don't know how much has been allocated to a certain sector, they want to talk about it, but at least that one you have, and it's okay. It's your budget. It's a country budget. And I know a lot of Ugandans today are looking forward to what monies will be allocated to certain sectors, and then we'll have a talk after that. Because there are those that will be saying, no, I wish they gave this. They don't know how that money is going to be broken down, but they will have an opinion on how they think that money should have been allocated. After the finance committee sat, Ministry of Finance sat, and were like, no, this is how we are allocating. You're going to hear Ugandans.
It is our money, Molin.
Giving opinions.
It is our money, we are going to talk about
that one you can give, but individual money, please,
we should leave it out.
Leave it out.
Okay, well,
forget that case.
Felix, good morning.
Good morning, Philo.
How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. How
are you going to talk about our money?
Well, but if you...
All Ham's money.
It's not his money until it is actually his. So, but
they said especially lawyers.
But the other thing also, the good thing is that he wrote a book about getting rich. If they take the money, he will read the book again and he will make money.
He could
he
use
has
his
a couple
own
of
advice.
books, so he can read his books and become.
We can quote
again.
those books.
No, you can read them in case they take his money. He'll read, and now at least he knows the formula. So let him apply that to himself.
What if that was one way?
I saw a very unsightly goonism at court when he carried those thugs and hecklers. That's not how we do practice. That was very unsightly. It was petty. It didn't help him anyway. And that aside, of course, we expect now Molin also has issues, people who comment about the budget. And I find that very speculative for even us to think that Ugandans have every right to make comment, whether false, whether right, whether wrong, whether what, it doesn't matter. No, you call analysts every day to talk about the budget. What's wrong with Ugandans talking about them? In their opinion,
but it has
they're the
already
most
been
affected.
Passed. It has already been passed.
Opinions is how they can get a leverage about whatever things you do in your so-called technical way. I don't even know. With the technique, if Ugandans were technical as they call themselves, we wouldn't be in a situation where we are today. So let Ugandans speak. The more they speak, the more we get to know what is needed on ground. Like honestly, like I had a story this week. The Honorable Nabanja ordered the leader of opposition not to visit government hospitals anymore. Because in her opinion, she said that when the leader of opposition visits these hospitals, he incites workers to demonstrate. I think that was one of the hospitals, because doctors had gone on a strike, they weren't paid for 2 months. So in her opinion, that the visit of the leader of opposition was an incitement. So she ordered the Honorable Matthias Impuga not to visit anymore government. Isn't that hilarious?
And tell me why people wouldn't have something to say about that.
No, honestly and truly, who does such a thing?
Well, okay. Well, things are really getting harder and tougher, but at least I know that lately Ugandans have decided to speak out, to open their mouths and talk. They want to talk it out and make sure that they have an audience and an authority listening to them, but
Actually,
also to expect feedback.
The more you shut people's mouths, they burst. And you don't want people.
We'll get a terrible outburst.
Yes. Let the people speak.
Well.
And pick out what you think is important and don't take the rest.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
But as they're speaking, isn't it very important to consider how they deliver their information? Can that be regulated as well?
Who is given that authority to say you speak like this? You know, that's what we call self. You know, you used to have this point in classes. Tell your more class monitor, you keep quiet, you keep quiet. You keep quiet. Who told who?
I now know what kind of student Felix was.
No. I don't like people who try to make themselves class monitors of Uganda. You know,
and monitresses.
Because everyone speaks according to where they stand. You don't know how someone slept.
Well,
so let them make the comment. As long as it doesn't harm anyone or it doesn't kill anyone, the people speak.
Well, Robert, speak to us. Good morning.
You see, one of the problems of this generation is excitement. People get so much excited. And one wise man once said, a quiet fool may be mistaken for being a wise man. Whereas, a wise man or a presumed wise man may be identified for being a fool when he speaks. The Bible is very clear. It talks about the power of the tongue. And for us professional journalists, we have something we cherish, and we say the pen is mightier than the sword. So it's not a matter of speaking. You must know what you're going to say and its impact. That's why we have laws globally. There are laws. Even in the best countries where they talk about freedom of expression, freedom of speech, still you don't just wake up and say anything and you go back and sleep. You know, even in our constitution we have laws. Not that you're going to come back and come out and say a lot of things about me and you think, no, it's my right, I can't speak because if I don't, I'll bust. You end up, because that's not, even in heaven we are told, there is order. Because the tongue has the power to make or break. So I don't succumb to that thought of speak, speak, speak. And I'm among the people who feel that there are certain things where certain people shouldn't speak. He who has not researched has no right to speak. I've seen people speak about this harm case. Bank ayagala kuba smart harm. You're talking about 120 billion. Neza sako, you know? So I feel no. And actually for me, I'm even one person who says not everyone should even vote. You know? But because you're having poor leaders, I was watching the Bukedia by-election. You see people fighting, people beating up journalists, confiscating their equipment, people, and then even I think sometimes my brothers in this profession don't feel offended. But even sometimes the choice of people when you go to these scenes that we give the microphone to speak should also be very selective. Sometimes you see they bring a drunkard on serious issues, now Gambachi, now Yogirachi, and you're like, sensibly, did you go to school and you're professional? And a man who is not in this proper state is the one you're giving a microphone to make a comment? So for me, I don't succumb to that issue of people speak. No, because I know the tongue has the power to make and destroy. There are things that you don't understand the best that you should leave for those who understand the best. That's why even have beat reporting, those that
or you could decide to go and educate yourself and find out more about these things that you'd love to talk about, so that you can speak from a more informed point of view.
Talking about a law, instead of saying, oh, Felix, here advice. You find someone talking about body transplant, and most of the problem has been worsened by our politicians. And as the media, you have a weekend show. So you bring every Tom and Dick, because he's a counselor, he's a what? You're going to discuss something very important, you need experts. The budget is a process. By now, anyone, because consultations begin far early. We no longer have the budget by finance, and it's a surprise. We all know, if you've been eager, you now know how the budget is for how much are you going to pay to URA? Oh, this you already have now. So, but then you're going to find someone bringing someone talk about the budget. Completely idiotic, not understanding what to say. And I say, Omobaka, Kansala, now you get a kubino. So we've also made it easy that anyone can speak. But when you watch our brothers in the international media, they don't do that. A lecturer, professor, minister, come here. Bring anyone. So not everyone should speak on any issue. No.
Well, at least we are very certain that we'll have the right people talking to us about the budget much later on in the day. And of course, we'll be having a couple of delegates coming in from different ministries. But we know that this entire activity will be spearheaded by the Ministry of Finance. So make sure that you take interest. If you haven't been following up, at least today, you can sit down, watch your TV, lucky for you. That will be airing live on UBC TV. So you will know where everything concerning the budget for the country come 2023-2024 financial year. For now, we will go through our local stories and the international stories, what's been making the headlines.
Let's begin with the budget reading today, where His Excellency will be addressing, that is Ugandans, but he will do this under visual. He will not be practically there. His Excellency is expected to address Ugandans today. President Museveni announced that he will address Parliament virtually during the budget on today, and as he continues to isolate due to his positive status of COVID-19. In a statement released yesterday, President Museveni assured the nation that he is feeling well, with only mild symptoms experienced during the initial days. The decision to address Parliament remotely comes after the president's late COVID-19 test still returned positive. Notably, the First Lady, Mama Janet Museveni, has tested negative for the virus, as they have been diligently following safety protocols. President Museveni acknowledged the concerns raised on social media and through phone calls regarding the timing of the tests. He clarified that the tests were conducted sooner than anticipated due to diplomatic pressures. The president was scheduled to join a group of 6 African presidents on a train trip to Kyiv, Ukraine, for mediating efforts in Russia-Ukraine conflict. However, he has officially informed the group that his positive status prevents his physical participation. Instead, the Ugandan delegation will be led by Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, who is already in Poland for the diplomatic engagement. On the budget day, the president will delegate the responsibilities of inspecting the parade and taking the salute for the march past to the Vice President Jessica Alupo.
Now, a huge gathering breast the afternoon downpour in honor of the late fallen comedian Kato Wama, commonly known as Uncle Kato. Naruwama who was buried at his ancestral home in Nkozi, in PG district. After a week-long mourning, government officials, political party leaders, artists, among others, attended the burial ceremony. Tributes for one in a million comedian Katoruwama kept pouring, reflecting on the great loss of a person who was only true to himself. Now, Katoruwama was one of the funniest comedians Uganda had ever heard, and was also among the brilliant, funny people whose conversations would always leave you helpless with laughter.
And away from that, legal experts have revealed that it was a right decision and standard for the Director of Public Prosecution to withdraw charges against Omusinga of Rwenzururu Charles Wesley Mumbere. Omusinga Charles Wesley Mumbere, yesterday, the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecution discontinued over 40 charges which had levied against him. For 7 years at the International War Crimes Division in Kololo, the Omusinga of Rwenzururu Charles Wesley Mumbere, together with 200 subjects, were facing over 40 charges of treason, murder, aggravated robbery, terrorism, malicious damage, among others, which offenses the prosecution was alleging that were committed in Kasese in 2016. However, on Tuesday, before Justice Alice Kyomu Hanji, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution filed a loss of interest in the case and the charges earlier levied against Omusinga Charles Wembele in 207 and his 217 royal guards.
Now, prosecution witness number 2 in the DNA analyst, SSP Atuhaire Immaculate, in the case of the murder of Asio Immaculate, wife of the accused Francis Onebe, has confirmed to court that Asio's body was found in a septic tank at Francis Onebe's home in Munyonyo. Confirmation was made before Judge Michael Irubu during the hearing of the case at High Court Criminal Division in Kampala. The High Court Criminal Division in Kampala is hearing the murder case of Immaculate Asio Mary Blessing filed against her husband, businessman Francis Onebe, and security guard David Oriekot.
But to the international stories, at least 79 people have died and more than 100 have been rescued after their fishing vessel capsized off the coast of southern Greece. But survivors and Greek officials say that hundreds more migrants were on board. The government says this is one of Greece's biggest migrant tragedies and has declared 3 days of mourning. The boat went down about 80 kilometers southwest of Pylos after the Coast Guard said it had refused help. Now, the Coast Guard say the boat had been spotted in international waters late on Tuesday by an aircraft belonging to the EU border agency Frontex. No one on board was wearing life jackets, it added. The United States will address the death of elderly American citizen Omar Assad, who was killed by Israel forces last year, directly with Israel after the country's military announced that it will not pursue criminal charges in the case. Early in 2021, Assad, who was 80 years old, suffered a stress-induced heart attack after he was arbitrarily detained, bound, blindfolded and gagged by Israel forces and then left out unresponsive on the ground at a cold construction site in the occupied West Bank. The Israel army said on Tuesday that it found no causal link between the way its soldiers treated Assad and the American citizen's death. The U.S. Department of State, which often reiterates that the safety of Americans abroad is its top priority, said on Wednesday that it was looking into the Israel findings.
Away from that, 8 Kenyan police officers were killed when their vehicle was destroyed by an improvised explosive device in a suspected attack by Somalia-based rebel group Al-Shabaab. Police said the incident took place on Tuesday in Garissa County in eastern Kenya, a region on the border with Somalia, where Al-Shabaab have been waging a bloody religion against the fragile government in Mogadishu for more than 15 years. We lost 8 police officers in this attack, Northeastern Regional Commissioner John Otieno said. We suspect the work of We suspect that this is the work of the Al-Shabaab, who are now targeting security forces and passenger vehicles. The attack came only days after Ethiopia said it foiled a suicide attack by the group in the border town of Dolo. And in climate news, after a month of negotiations, the German government announced on Wednesday that it is reforming its climate action law, which acts as a foundation for its federal climate policy. The goal of reducing climate gas emissions by 65% by 2030 has become attainable for the first time, said Economy and Climate Minister Robert Habeck, the Green politician who spearheaded the law. Even with the reform, Germany is still estimated to fall 200 million tons short of reaching its 2030 climate targets. When Habeck became minister, however, the gap was 1,100 million tons. Overall, Habeck said the government has made enormous progress. Now, the new climate law's fundamental goals remain the same, with Germany still needing to reduce carbon emissions by 65%. That is by 2030 from the 1990 level. However, the climate target compliance will no longer be monitored retrospectively according to different sectors such as transport, industry or agriculture, but rather looking into the future over several years and across sectors.
Well, more stories coming in, but just to take you through some of the big stories you would be expecting in the New Vision this morning. 6 opium bosses remanded over 6.9 billion Ugandan shillings, accused and arrested over funds meant for Karamoja. Government delivers a 52.7 Ugandan shillings a trillion budget today. And of course, looking at the by-election, NRM leading in Bokedia. Another story to look out for, Uganda routes for Nigeria flights. Of course, in conversations regarding trade that you can find in the New Vision. And finally, 5,400 older persons to benefit from a 5 billion shillings grant. And again, this could be in light of today's international celebrations, creating awareness against abuse when it comes to the elderly people. Now, today marks another day where we are celebrating our old people in our society. The other day we were having conversations here showing how Uganda was prepared to commemorate this day. Well, we'll be having more conversations regarding this in the newsreel, so you want to stay around and be part of the conversation. And much later on, we'll be having some more updates on weather and climate coming in from Mullen. We do have the agenda queued up as well, where we'll be talking money in regards to the national budget that will be read much later on today. We do have sports coming up, and of course, Good Morning Uganda Extra. We'll be back shortly after this. Good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. Today, 15th of June, 2023, a Thursday at that. It's going to be a very, very interesting, but also very eventful day here in Uganda. Quite a number of things that we will be seeing in the media for a couple of hours and also hours away from now. We know that the national budget for the financial year 2023-2024 is expected to be presented and read today. Very many Ugandans have really taken a keen interest in this one, and most definitely we will be waiting to see what has to be said. What are the wins and who is going to be missing out on this financial cake? We'll be looking into all the sectors, of course, as we go on and on and on. But also allow me to congratulate the people of Bukedea. Yesterday we did see the results come out, and now we do have Maria Cole, who emerged to be the winner in this very specific seat or position. And of course, she was coming in on the NRM ticket. I did see a number of celebrations, but of course, you know that there will definitely be people who are not okay with this contesting the results. So I mean, it's a whole long process, but I know that my colleagues here have quite a lot to share on that. Very, very interesting. Speaking of the budget, we also did see the East African community present the East African budget that is standing at about 364 billion Ugandan shillings. I can tell you we are talking money, and money is going to be talked about by us. Well, speaking of us, definitely being joined by Robert, Molin, and Felix. Very, very happy to have you here. Molin, good morning.
Well, a very good morning to you, Philomena. It is quite a great Thursday, I should say. One of those Thursdays you think and you're like, oh, how is this week going to end? And just to throw in a little bit of warmth, from last night, I was on Twitter enjoying people talking about Uncle Mo's tweets about people giving opinions in the Hamis Kigundu case.
Yes.
So this guy is expecting anyone who does not know anything about 120 billion to not give an opinion. He says, my dear,
if you don't know what it feels like to
even have a billion,
yes,
how dare you have an opinion in a case where someone, an individual, is taking on a bank on 120 billion. But then again, we are Ugandans. Everything, everyone's business we mind. So sometimes it's okay to
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us. 8 minutes past 7 a.m. Today is the 15th of June. The year is 2023. And of course, it's a Thursday, a throwback Thursday, if you want to put it that way. My name is Philomena Masco. And thank you so much for joining us for the newsreel. Well, like I did say a couple minutes ago, today is not just any ordinary Thursday. Quite an eventful one, actually, away from the national budget reading that we are expecting much later on in the day. But also today, we are celebrating the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Now, we had pretty much interesting conversations earlier on in this week showing you how Uganda was ready or was preparing to actually commemorate this day. And we did have our Honorable Minister come in. We also had the Commissioner from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development who highlighted that as activities are being planned here in the country, we need to also be sure that they will be going on actively tomorrow. But today is actually the day when we are celebrating this World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. 3 keywords here, looking at the elderly, looking at awareness, and looking at abuse against these specific category of people. Well, this year's theme, definitely internationally, we're looking at closing the circle, addressing gender-based violence in older age, policy, law, and evidence-based responses. But when we trickle down here in Uganda, we are looking at paying attention and respect to the older people in our communities, in our societies, and in the country generally. Well, this morning I am joined by 2 special guests who I do believe 100% will be telling us the right way to do that, and also telling us anything and everything we need to know when it comes to abuse against the elder people in our societies. Well, I am so happy to be joined by Mr. Were Wetaga Emmanuel Fred, the head of programs at the Uganda Reach the Aged Association. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Madam.
Well, away from that, I'm also joined by Edith Kazimba, the program director at Rotom, who will be telling us later on what Rotom is and why I do believe that they are the right people that we should be talking to this morning. Edith, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
I hope you're having a wonderful morning.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, getting straight into it, of course, I would encourage you to partake in the conversation. You know, our social media pages are always open for you. Twitter, #UBCGMU, and of course, our WhatsApp platform number, 0709-602-592. Go ahead, let us know any questions, any complaints definitely will be welcome. Any clarification, any opinion, 2 cents, we would really love to hear from you. So I do encourage you to be part of the conversation. But getting straight into this, and maybe just to start off with you, Emmanuel, we are looking at a day like this. Someone will think it's just a basic day. Anybody would be talking about it. But what do you feel like it is very important for us to be commemorating a day like this?
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Moderator. The World Elderly Abuse Awareness Day is that day that we remember, but also we look at what our older persons going through. Older persons in this country are one of the most vulnerable persons. It's a day, many times older persons are put behind the curtains and the people think they have it all. But yet they face a lot of abuses. They face a lot of challenges. We actually have a word we called ageism, which is actually the discrimination against older persons. And it comes in different facets. This particular day for Uganda, we are looking at a theme of seniors deserve our respect. Many of our older persons have lost their respect. They are not respected by communities. They're not respected by their own children. They're not respected by the government or the planners of the government. So it's a day when we want to raise awareness into to the country, but also the communities, that older persons deserve to be respected. Older persons are people who we should consider with dignity. You know, I look at an older person as that person who many times are the people, like when you look at the roads, when you're constructing roads, you'll have this machine that comes to make the road. And it will come and make the road so beautiful. And after it has made the road so beautiful, they bring another vehicle called the wheel loader. And they get this very wonderful car which has made the roads, and they put it on a wheel loader, and it's taken back to the stores. That's how many of our older persons are considered. Somebody has built their own house, and they are told, you no longer need to stay in town. Go back to the village. You've made your own money. You have your own pieces of land. And they tell you, no, daddy, mommy, you're too old to look after this land. Give it to us. So that kind of things are taking place. And the older persons look at this, and many times they are silent about it. They cannot talk. You know, they have their dignity, but it's already abused. And so it's that day when we want to remind people that please look at the older persons with respect and give them their dignity, which they do deserve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Edith, I do believe that you come from Reach One and Touch One Ministries, that is Rotom, which I know has a lot of responsibilities when it comes to elder people. I know you've done quite a lot. Maybe before you even get to it, you can shed some more light on that, but also create for us a picture from the experiences you've seen, how big this issue of abuse against the elderly is, especially here in the country.
Okay. And first of all, my name once again is Edith Kazimba, and I serve with Reach One Touch One Ministries. We are located in Mukono, but we also have another branch in Ruchiga district. And currently we support 926 older persons in the remote villages, about 100. And our vision, Rotom envisions older persons living dignified and fulfilled lives. So by doing so, we consider the vulnerable older persons, and vulnerable older persons of 64 years and above. Some people in the country, sometimes they even think, you are talking of, are they there? So when I say 900, people said, what? You mean you have a home of 900 older persons? Of course not, but we reach out to them in their communities. And like my colleague has already mentioned, there is a lot of abuse. Of course, emotionally, physically, financially, and because they are old, they are abandoned. First of all, most of these have lost their dear ones. They have lost their children, most of them. And in our African setting, we all assume that when you grow old, your children will take care of you.
Yes.
Yes. Unfortunately, it has not been the case. So most of the children have passed on, and as if that is not enough, they have left children behind for these older persons to take care of. And of course, an older person who does not have any source of income, you find them in a very miserable state. They are struggling to take care of themselves, then they even have the children to take care of. And then in addition to that, even the little what they have, you find people, we've had so many issues of land grabbing. I think you keep seeing those.
Yes.
Yes. So one time, some of the people we serve, they even told us, I would say this in Uganda, so they just want them to go and they take over their land. So sad. And these are the people they raised, thinking that they will support them. And of course, some have some relatives left behind, but they abandon them. You visit an older person in their home, they are lonely. Some of them, they don't even have a meal, maybe past 2 days or 3 days. They have not seen anyone to come and check on them, and you ask, but do you have any children? Do you have any cousins? And oh, I remember I had some, but they left 5 years ago. I think they're there in Kampala, And what left for them? of course, to be in a miserable state. And immediately they show up, they just want to take the land. Some of them, they have a right to get food. Some of them can no longer afford to get food because some of them are even bedridden. They need special care. They need someone to be just beside them, to turn them, to prepare a meal for them. Dotom does a lot of work in that, of course, to provide the care that they really want, such that they live a dignified life. But it's a lot of work. Okay. It's a big need, a very big need, and it's very costly. Most of these older persons, one of their biggest needs is health care. And you know how challenging health care is here in Uganda. There is no free, very little. Of course, yes, we have government health centers and hospitals, but you know what happens there. And when it comes to the older person, what are you talking about? Of course, so many times they are left in the lines, they are not attended to, they are ignored, you are taking our time, so many things. And of course, you meet them and they are so miserable, and it is against that background that Rotom came to show the love, the care, because they deserve it, just like any other human being in Uganda.
Okay. And now that we have an image, a picture of what exactly we mean by abuse against the elderly, I also do understand that there are definitely reasons behind all of this. And again, clearly showing that the statistics are going higher. Why do you think this problem is escalating at a very fast rate? Why are we seeing more elderly people being isolated, more elderly people impoverishing in poverty? Why are we seeing many elderly people not happy generally? What could be the cause root of the problem? Maybe before we get to the solution, we could try to understand that first.
Yeah, many of our older persons worked very hard. And you know, you'll find like a father and a mother, they bring up to 10 children. And they have taken them to school. Many of the, at least I can say many of our older persons have done that. We agree that those who could have not cared, but those are a small bracket. Most of our older persons cared for their children, took them to school. But when it turns around, you'll find that the 10 cannot come and back and look after the 2. And sometimes by the time even the 10 are coming, it's only 1 remaining. Most times you'll find either the father or the mother, they've already died. Now we are also losing our what I would call our cultural ways of how we used to look after each other. They're dwindling. I think it's coming so much with the, would I call it permissiveness, that the society no longer now teaches children to respect, or they have just lost the respect. You'll find, I'll give an example of, most times you'll find fathers, for example, they are so busy looking for the money, they come, they pay the school fees, but sometimes probably they don't have that soft love like mommy has. So most times the fathers will have the powers as long as the children are still within their care. They are the ones paying for their fees, they are paying for. Then when now time comes, these children don't reciprocate that. But also there's a facet of that. Also the children have also got their own responsibilities. Or some have entered the responsibilities earlier than
yes, as they should, before they should be there.
Yeah, so you find that that also has an effect on that. But also there's the aspect of currently we've not been having laws that actually spell out how we should care for our older persons. And that's why we are calling to the government, to the parliament. So far we've had, we initially have been having the National Policy for Older Persons, 2009, which we've reviewed, and now we want to have an act. We are asking the Parliament of Uganda to expedite that process of having an act. It will spell out how we shall care for our older persons. It will spell out what rights do they have. It will spell out how we can mainstream even older persons within, just like you can mainstream issues of gender. You're mainstreaming issues of disability. We should now start mainstreaming issues of older persons. So there's the aspect of the community disintegration, that communities no longer respect older persons. There's also the aspect of poverty. I agree, like most recently with the COVID-19 outbreak, many of the children lost jobs. So you'd find that they're still pushing their own children to the grandparents to look after them. Yet they also no longer have any...
They're also struggling.
Yes. So that aspect also came in. And because of that, you know, many times our older persons want they can never sue their children. So you'll find that there are also children who will come, they want to grab land. There are these children who have this mindset of, my father and my mother have been working all their life for me, so it's time for me to enjoy there. And they forget that
it has to be actually the other way around.
So
yes.
There's also that aspect. So our cultural issues are kind of breaking. And that's why it's a call that as young people, whenever you're sending, because in this country, 60% up to 60, at least 60% of vulnerable children are actually under the care of our older persons. Like she has explained, many of our older persons have lost their children. So they don't have a support system in terms of somebody who has some resources.
Yes.
So, and these children, when they died, some of them left their children. But we also have those who just come to Kampala. They are giving birth to children every day from different women and pushing to the village. Now, also that is a kind of abuse because this woman, this man, no longer has a source of income. And you're pushing the children there, you're not supporting. But they'll never complain. So, the community, the government also is not having the issues of the laws, and that's why I've called, let's expedite the process of having our act. But also we have older persons who we agree, some of them, and it's a call to our older persons, please respect yourself, and then you'll also be respected. But in terms of culturally, an older person should not command for respect. We should be respecting them.
Yes. You know, you said that, and you're echoing what the State Minister for the Elderly, that is Honorable Gidudu, who was here just a couple of days ago, and he said disrespect has prevailed, especially amongst the young people. When it comes to the elderly, there is absolutely no respect being given to them. Even just with the simple acts, you know, for example, if you find an old person, you're queuing up for services, I don't know, in a bank or any other institution, they will just leave this man to struggle as opposed to just letting the man go through. Even in the smallest tiny bits of action, there is totally no respect that is being you know, given to these old people. So when you say that, clearly it makes a whole lot of sense.
And so if I may just add a little, the respect also they're losing it because, you know, initially, as I was telling you, the father had the money, he would pay, and he had the economic muscles. But now he no longer has the economic muscles. And that's where he has lost his respect. The children now feel like they're the ones making the money now and feel, I think I have now more than you. And also, the disrespect has come. But also, this aspect of, I think just children who have grown up in a way of not being taught how to respect. I don't know. A society has been, you go and find friends and they push you in the wrong direction.
That's true. Well, we are talking about World Elderly Abuse Awareness Day, the day that we commemorate internationally today on the 15th of June. And we're looking at some of the challenges, some of the reasons as to why the numbers of cases, especially when it comes to elderly people being abused every now and then, are escalating, but also how do we get to respond to this issue? How do we get to address it? Who is doing what, or who should be doing what? And clearly this is a conversation that I do believe is cuts across generations, the young people and the old people. Definitely there has to be a support system. And personally, I believe that it heavily depends on the young people. How well are you supporting the old people in the community? Now, speaking of which, Edith, the other day, again, we were making an analysis and we realized that there is a whole intergenerational divide between the young people and the old people, where we believe that because of all the changes that have happened, especially right now, there is technology, the world is really moving at a very fast pace. Now, this may be too fast for the old people to catch up with, but the young people definitely, they're very swift, very dynamic, they catch up with. Do you think this is also another challenge that has caused quite a gap between the old people and the young people, and also the inhuman behavior from the young people towards the old people? Do you believe it has contributed a lot from what you have actually seen as an organization?
Definitely it has, I would say that, because the older person deep in the village, some of them don't know how to use a cell phone. And even when they can know how to use it, they can't even access it. And like you mentioned that the generation is a .com world, their phone, WhatsApp, Twitter, and all those things. And of course, as you speak that in the villages where these other persons are, as if you are speaking in tongues. And of course, that makes a very big gap between the old and the young generation, of course. And that, of course, nevertheless, even when that happens, I think like my colleague said, that if this generation, they know that they are taught, they are nurtured, they are groomed that yes, we are in this era, we may not stop the era, of course, but we can appreciate that era also. And then I think that can bridge the gap. Yes, we can be on Twitter, WhatsApp, and what, and our parents, our grandmothers and grandfathers, much as they may not know so much about the Twitter and WhatsApp, we can do such things they understand by visiting them, by, you know, meeting with them in the communities, because for them that's what they understand. They may not WhatsApp because they don't even have the cell phones themselves.
Yes.
Yes.
Even if they had some of these, they may not exactly know how to operate them.
They don't know how to use them.
Yes.
But I think if we appreciate, we respect them and we appreciate that, yes, these are our grandparents and our grandmothers, and this is how far they have come, this is what they can understand, and then we focus on what they can understand and support them. I think we can bridge that gap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do let us know what you think about this topic, and of course I'll be sharing your views in a very a couple minutes from now. But also, now, Emmanuel, we need to understand, again, I so firmly believe that inclusivity is very key. And when I talk about inclusivity, I am talking at all levels. I'm talking at local level, I'm talking at you know, legislative level, I am talking at policy making level. So how best can we actually include the old people in our planning for the country, and also to ensure that even when we include them, there is efficacy registered in all of this. If we are making policies, if we are having representatives of the elderly people, they are actually doing their work, especially like at parliamentary level. How do we get to achieve that? And anyway, do you believe it could be an answer or a solution to the issue we're talking at hand?
Thank you so much. First of all, let me just go back a little. Uganda Rich the Age Association, we are a national organization which is into national level advocacy. And part of the advocacy is advocacy for policies. We've been part and parcel of the processes of developing different policies in this country, including the National Policy for Older Persons that came in force in 2009, and now has been ratified, and we shall be having a new one. We also have been part and parcel of the National Council for Older Persons Act of 2013. And in that act is where now we spelled out how leadership can come up. We have leadership now at, currently we have the parliamentary, we have 5 parliamentarians, 5 members of parliament from 4 regions, and includes one lady who has to transverse the whole country, representing women. We as well as have, at national council level, we have up to 16 members, who compose of 8 members from the 4 regions. Then we have the ministries represented, like Ministry of Health, Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Local Government. We have a social gerontologist. And we also have one particular position of a person called as a geriatrician. That's a doctor who specializes in diseases of older persons.
Can I get that again?
A geriatrician.
Oh, wow.
A geriatrician.
The things we learn every day.
Yeah. There are very few.
Yes.
Those doctors are very few. Actually, we have like 2 in this region. So you can see that's a gap, and we are calling upon the young people to go and study that medicine. Now, these are the people who come at the policy level in terms of discussions of issues that relate to older persons. Now, I'm going to talk for the different levels. At community level, we have also councils there. Council where it composes of 5 older persons, of whom at least a third have to be women. It means out of 5, at least 2. Then they also, so those councils, and then they also have councillors. Now, councillors go to council meetings. to legislate on issues that relate to older persons. But they have to get the views from the people, the community. So older persons, through your councils, you can take your views there. Then the councillors, and let's say like at the district level, where they have what we call the budget cycles. The budget cycles normally start as early as the August and go around just like a cycle.
Yes.
Today we are going to be having the budget being read, but it's a whole process that started a long time ago.
Way last year, yes.
So our older persons can also participate at that level. Then also at the national level now have our MPs, who also have to take the views of older persons. So, but we have said, normally the leaders, and I'll give an example of the district level, you'll find that there are only 2 councillors. Now, if these 2 councillors stood in a council of about 40 members, you'll find if they advocated for something, it might not get the strength. And that's why now we bring in the issue of inclusivity in terms of work with other special interest groups. The special interest groups, in this case, we have the women, we have the youth, we have the persons with disability, and most recently we have now the workers. Now, these forces, and together we call them the special interest groups, they need to work together in terms of advocating for their different electorate, because there are issues that concern all of them at the same time. For example, health. Health affects everyone. So when we talk about, yes, you know, the biggest problem for older persons is usually two areas. It's either health, because as we keep growing older, even our immunity is growing weaker, and so many times we find that health becomes the biggest concern.
Yes.
Actually, the one which takes the biggest budget. But also this aspect of economic, we shall come to that. So when you are advocating for health, it affects the women, it affects the youth, it affects the person with disability, it also affects the workers, and now also the older person. So if you are in the council, why don't you talk about, for example, let's have an affirmative action or an ordinance that legislates that when older persons come to hospitals, or when a person with disability come to hospitals, they are given first priority, not to line up. But unfortunately, in our hospitals, you find that an older person will come and say, you know,
they attended to last, yes.
And you know, he'll come and say, I have a headache, I have a backache. And do you know what some of the medical personnel will say? In Uganda, they say, people, there is no disease called old age. Old age is just a process in life, and all of us will become old if we respect our older persons. Otherwise, we'll get cast and not reach there. But if the youth came also and say the same thing, that I have a headache, they'll say, let's do some blood test. So the same way we'll treat the older person. Treat them. So the decisions are around. So older persons participate at that level.
Yes.
As Uganda Rich Aid Association and also Rotom, we have what we call older person associations. And these associations usually have up to 30 or even more older persons. They meet on a regular basis, at least twice in a week. And they can meet, sometimes they are saving, they can meet for their own psychosocial support. But even in those meetings, you can come up with things that you can discuss and be able to push them to your leaders. I've told you, you have councillors, you have at the sub-county level, at district level, and now even at national level. So at those levels, you can participate in terms of decision making.
Yes.
At district level, sometimes the appropriate budgets, and sometimes we find it's older persons who have gotten the lowest budget. Why? Because sometimes their voice was not heard. We are calling upon the councils, can you give our older persons an opportunity to also sometimes speak? And for older persons, don't put them through this process. You know, you have to have told the speaker in time to come and bring your issue. You know, that kind of plan. Let our older persons be given an opportunity to talk at any moment in those councils, to raise their voice, to talk about their issues. Because these are the people whose foundation this nation is on. When you talk about the roads, these are the people who built the roads. When you talk about, for example, this UBC, the people who started UBC are now old.
Yes.
If they are still surviving, those are the people who should give an opportunity to come and give them free airtime to come and talk about their issues. Because it's on that foundation that you're also standing on. If they didn't build, but many times we don't look at the foundation, because the foundation is underneath. We look at the beautiful building.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Now, Edith, as we're coming close to the end of this, I do understand that social isolation is a risk factor especially that, you know, when we are talking about elderly abuse. Now, I would love to understand how, you know, your organization and what they are doing exactly to combat this issue and the loneliness amongst the elderly people. It is bad. What are you doing?
Wow. That is our major focus. Like I earlier on mentioned, that most of them, we find them when they're lonely, they're abandoned. So one of the major activities we do, we organize group support meetings. In Rotom, we call them fellowships. Rotom is a Christian organization. So twice a month, they gather in their communities, in their villages, and just have their conversation as the other persons. They share the word of God. They share their challenges. They comfort one another. It's always their day. They call it their day. They sing and dance, and they're even able to share a very nutritious meal, which most of them cannot have. For so many times they can't access it. But when they come together, that's one of the things we make sure that happens. And another thing, we have a community model. We have, we call them village volunteers. These village volunteers have been trained to care for the other persons. They visit them in their homes. So they work with our field officers. We have so many staff working in the field. We call them field officers. We have a field nurse because we talked of the health care. They have to get their drugs and, you know, on time, making sure they have swallowed their drugs. Sometimes they forget. So with that network, they are visited always in their homes. So even when a senior is living alone in the house, at least they expect a field officer to visit, or a volunteer, or a field nurse, or a field assistant. So we have a big network in our community that even when Edith is at the office, we have people on the ground that even if there is an emergency, for example, if one of our judges got sick and needed attention immediately, they can call us, and we have an ambulance, we have field cars, we can easily go and rescue them and bring them to the health centers.
Okay.
Yes, so that's where we focus. We make sure they access their health care, and on that we have 2 health centers, majoring in geriatric care. We have one in Mukono and another one in Ruchiga district. So we have trained personnel to take care of the other persons, and the other persons are our priority. Of course, the health centers are open to the wider community, but the other persons take the first priority.
Okay. Yes. Just a couple of comments. Chigwe Livingstone of Lueza Kajansi says, growth is a characteristic of every living thing. Growing old is normal, so we don't need to be sensitized about that, but the government should make policies that accommodate older people in all aspects like health and wellness of their day-to-day life. Thank you so much, Chigwe. And from Evelyn here saying that respect has to be cultivated amongst the young people to understand what significance the older people have in their lives, and also laying the foundation, again, something that you have been talking about. Well, very, very, very briefly, Emmanuel, what would be your parting shots in this?
Yeah, today we are commemorating the World Elderly Abuse Awareness Day, and it's a day when we, as we've said, we need to consider and see that we should not be abusing our older persons. And you know, there are those things you'll do and you think you're not abusing the older persons, but you're actually doing it. I've mentioned, for example, you just pushing children, or your own children who you responsibly sired, and you just throw them back to the older woman or older man, and you're not sending any support. That's already an abuse. You thinking that your father worked for you and so you should just go and grab the land, it's an abuse. We are calling upon the communities to start to respect older persons. Respect their property. When you respect them, respect everything that concerns them. Give them the dignity due. At the community level, that's that. For the children level, we still keep complaining that, why are you giving older persons only 25,000 as social assistance grant for older persons for empowerment? But you, when was the last time you sent even 10,000 to your father, to your mother? Before you start blaming the government, how much have you sent at least to your father? In just a month. For the government, we are calling upon you. We have the act that is now before Parliament. We ask you to pass it. It will help us a lot. We are also calling upon the government we have the African Union Protocol on the rights of older persons, which our good president chaired that meeting in Addis Ababa. Unfortunately, Uganda, we've not yet ratified it or signed it. We are calling upon the government to sign it so that it can help, because whatever rights have been mentioned can be able easily to be mainstreamed in our country. I also call upon the aged care organizations. Here we are Rotom and the Uganda Rich the Aid Association, but all those that are outside there. On this particular day, let us be able to go out there and continue supporting and continue fighting for the rights of older persons. We're also calling upon other special interest group leaders and also other special interest groups. Let's work together to have that harmony in terms of fighting for our own rights. When we fight for these rights together, we can be able to achieve a lot, because together we can achieve a lot. It's the call that I make to the government. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Emmanuel Owere. Emmanuel is the head of programs at the Uganda Reach the Aged Association, and Edith Kazimba is the programs director at Rotom, which is Reach One, Touch One Ministries. We will leave this conversation at that, but please be respectful. Please include these old people and understand the value and what they actually bring to the table, like we usually say these days. Well, we have sports updates coming in from Ruben Mpima Chibirango right after, and we have the GMU agenda queued up right after. Have a wonderful morning. My name is Philomena Masco. Good morning.
The National Budget Speech Reading for the financial year 2023-2024 will take place on the 15th of June 2023 at Kololo Independence Grounds under the theme Full Monetization of Uganda's Economy through Commercial Agriculture, Industrialization, Expanding and Broadening Services, Digital Transformation and Market Access. Follow the conversation on the hashtag KnowYourBudget23.
This is Good Morning Uganda. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. We'll be looking at the traffic situation on the roads for this morning, especially within the city center, and look at some of the connecting roads, how easy it can be for you to actually get into town without much traffic. Now, we're looking at the side of Mulago. If you're coming in from that area, also looking at some of the roads joining in from Kira side, you do have a bit of traffic that is building up. If you're coming in from Waise via Mulago, that is one that you should be aware of. And some of the roads connecting there, Gayaza Road as well, that is also bringing in a little bit of traffic, and that could delay you a bit, so you need to be aware of that. Now, also from that road, you do have a connection coming in from Kira Road. That's where we have a bit of traffic as well building up. That is indicated by the red lines there. That connects into Haji Musa Kalwe Road. So that is also one that could delay you this morning, and maybe you might also need to kind of avoid it if possible. But also looking at some of the alternative roads over there. If you're looking at Bombo Road this morning, it looks like it has clear traffic, and that goes all the way up to Wandegea. So that is quite a good one to use this morning. But also, if you're continuing with Haj Musa Kalwe Road, it looks like that is also having clear traffic and does join into Bombo Road right there. Although you again have traffic after that junction that goes on, but then it's a little bit kind of a short distance, so that shouldn't be taking you long. And then that connects to Wandegea Road of Bombo Road, so that you have a little bit of intense traffic, and that is the one that joins into the upper side, of course, getting into Buganda Road, and also to the upper side. If you're looking at Lumumba Avenue, you do have clear traffic over there. If you can avoid the main road, you can still use Lumumba Avenue. If you're coming into town, that looks to have clear traffic. Nakasero Road as well, you do have a bit of clear traffic over there as well, indicated by the green lines, and that should take you all the way up to this Peak Street, and that's where you have also clear traffic, and that is also a junction that is joining in from Nakasero to Lumumba Avenue. You do have clear traffic over there. And of course, now again with Speak Road, that's where you have a little bit of traffic on the roundabout, and that connects to Tannen Avenue. Also, you do have a bit of traffic, but then that clears as you leave the roundabout, and those actually do connect to the city square, and it looks like there is also quite clear traffic over there. We'll also be looking at the weather update for this morning. We'll be tapping in from our satellites, looking at the weather that we're expecting this morning, and also what is happening right now. We did start off with a bit of cloudy weather building up mostly over the northeastern part, over the northwestern part of the country. That is West Nile, where we have seen actually also drizzles come through for a few areas. Now, it looks like that system is still there, and that is bringing in more cloudy weather also towards the central parts of northern Uganda. That's what we're looking at. Parts of Gulu right now as we speak, mostly cloudy, and we do expect that that might also bring in a little bit of clouds, a little bit of rains over there as the day progresses. We also have more cloudy weather developing for the southwestern part of the country. Towards Fort Portal right now as we speak, we also have cloudy weather. There were a bit of rains earlier, but those have started to clear up. Also for parts of Mubende, mostly cloudy across southwestern Uganda this morning, as well as Kabale Highlands, but it looks like that might also be continuing throughout the entire morning. And also we're looking at more a clearing day for the Karamoja region, mostly sunny, and that goes for much of eastern Uganda. And right now we could be looking at also reduced wet weather activities for today across the eastern part of the country and much of the country. And much of that has been attributed to the low pressure system that is now building up across that is the northeastern part of the continent, and that is the tropical cyclone that is also forecast to make landfall in the northwestern part of India. That is already forecast to make landfall tonight, and of course from the satellites we've also seen a lot of intensity over the area that has been forecast to be hit by this cyclone. And much information that is coming through even to the areas that are closer to this tropical cyclone, where you see the deep red colors right there on the map. That is to the northwestern part of India, where the tropical cyclone is right now. It is still on water, but already bringing effects to that area. And it shows Karachi area, which earlier was actually evacuated. Most of the people over there have been evacuated. You see that is making movement also towards areas of Gujarat, which is where also a lot of evacuations have been done. Also to the side of Pakistan, it looks like it is building momentum, meaning that it will be landing with severity. Already the meteorology authority over India did issue alerts indicating that all the people over the area should be making their way to the settlement centers that they have been issued, but also there are a lot of damages that are expected from buildings to, of course, farms over there. And so far what we do know is that evacuations have been done and a lot of activities have been put on hold. For example, earlier there was a stop on all activities related to fishing in the area. That was suspended even from 3 days back. We know that also they have limited movement to the areas of Karachi especially, and looking at areas as well around Gujarat that are expected to be hit mostly. Even right now as we speak, the images that were coming in earlier just a few hours ago, the waves are already offshore and those have already started bringing in effects. And of course the people that were trying to make their way out of the buildings that are close to the coast, waiting for evacuations. The Army Department over India is already on that as well. They did make their way to the coastal areas to evacuate people, but also from the places that are within. And we did see also settlement centers that have already been flooded by numbers that are both from even the Indian side and Pakistan side. And of course, they're saying that from yesterday, there was still a lot of rains that came through over the area, where we did see, unfortunately, 7 people dying from that. But the updates that are coming in this morning are indicating that already more numbers have been evacuated, and the few that are remaining, the government is still urging people to leave the area because this could be really, really intense. And of course, from what is coming through, that shows that, most of those areas could actually be affected. And now they're still monitoring this cyclone, and of course that means that it could actually bring in much more of the destruction towards the areas. But this is not the first rodeo for India and Pakistan. Just earlier this year, again, there was huge floods across Pakistan that took numbers, more than 1,000 people that died from these floods, and most of those are usually related to the monsoon season over the Indian Ocean. But what we're saying is most of these are now frequent, because even the severity that they are reporting right now is being compared to a storm that happened in way back, like 40 years ago. So meaning that the intensity that we're seeing, was the severity that we're seeing right now, is something that is also being linked to climate change. And they're saying that if we do not have this warming, if the world was not warming at that kind of rate, at a faster rate, we wouldn't be having more of these cyclones developing over the oceans. And also this is a clarity that came in through due to the sea surface temperatures increasing, meaning that whenever those are increasing, then you have all these low pressure systems building on the oceans, and that is the effect that they cause, of course, bringing catastrophic events. Not to mention the emissions that we are putting in the atmosphere, and mostly talking about carbon dioxide, which we know traps more heat and is responsible for increasing temperatures. And just a report that came out recently also from NOAA and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change does indicate that now we might not even hit the target when it comes to reducing emissions on carbon dioxide. Just earlier in the morning, we were reading a story from Germany where they have actually made a significant target to cut their emissions 65% by 2030, but that is still too far. we're looking at the period in between now and 2030, we're already seeing people that are affected by these extreme weather events related to climate change, meaning that this is now, if you look at the estimated carbon budgets that were also made for the year, basing on the year 2020, we only have a 50% chance of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And that is the target that was put way back in 2015 by the Paris Agreement, where a lot of countries were party to this, and they put their signature on this accord. This was supposed to guide all of us, Uganda inclusive actually, because we also did have a Ministry of Water, Minister of Water and Environment represent us there, and we also agreed to this accord. So meaning that every country should be working forward to reduce emissions, but this is not happening according to targets. So by giving us a 50% chance, and the time, because this was laid back in 2015, but now we're already in 2023, we only have a few years to get to 2030. And I don't see the possibility of that unless countries commit to going renewable. And of course, that means reducing the use of fossil fuels, which is something that we still talk about each and every day, and it doesn't seem like a lot of countries are taking it upon, except a few that have really moved to that, and Germany is one of those that have really made a commitment towards that. We have seen Brazil, most of these big countries actually that even relatedly big polluters have tried to cut their emissions, but it's still not enough. And even with developing countries, there's a lot that can be done to make sure that we reduce the emission of carbon dioxide from our activities, especially with industrialization, with oil and gas, with farming, a lot of things that can be done to reduce some of these emissions. Well, we'll leave it at that this morning. We will be having Good Morning Uganda agenda right after this, and then later than that, we'll also be taking you through sports. My name is Molin Kenyana. I'm wishing you a happy day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
The National Budget Speech Reading for the financial year 2023-2024 will take place on the 15th of June 2023 at Kololo Independence Grounds under the theme Full Monetization of Uganda's Economy through Commercial Agriculture, Industrialization, Expanding and Broadening Services, Digital Transformation and Market Access. Follow the conversation on the hashtag KnowYourBudget23.
Uganda is rich in natural resources and hard-working people. But to turn these resources into real progress and development, we need to invest in our infrastructure, education, and healthcare. That's where taxes come in. When we pay our taxes, we are investing in our country's future. We are supporting the schools that educate our children, the hospitals that care for our families, and the roads and bridges that connect our communities. And when businesses pay their taxes, they are contributing to the growth and development of Uganda's economy. They are helping to build a stronger, more prosperous nation for us all. So when you pay your taxes, you are investing in the future of Uganda and supporting the progress and development of our nation. Uganda is because of you.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
My name is Atube Richard, a member of a group called Kanyope, located in Bungatira sub-county. This group started in 2008, but the Prelnol project started supporting us in 2009. The project has offered us training on farming, and the training we got has helped us immensely. We used to farm in a traditional way, planting a variety of crops. But when the team from Prelnor approached us, they asked us to choose particular seeds to grow which can yield very well in our area. We chose groundnuts and rice, which we are growing. With this kind of farming, the project also taught us how to sell as a group after finding a market. The support from the project has been so good to us.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
My name is Abel Bakunda, Deputy RDC Kario District. There are so many success stories and achievements that have been registered in Kario District and cutting across all the sectors and departments. The government interest is to have seed schools in almost every sub-county. And so far, the coverage in Kairo, we are still like at 40%. We are starting, but we are moving at a high speed. Then the Uganda Health Center, it is also a success story in the Department of Health. We are so far also the government is elevating the Manya Health Center for the district hospital. Then in the Department of Production, there are so many successful farmers moving far away from the traditional subsistence farming to the money economy. Our interventions of Myoga and PDM have so far had impacts on ground. Generally, it is good. We are trying, and there are so many success stories that anybody can come and see on ground.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Are you ready to celebrate a decade of making a positive climate impact? Join us in celebrating 10 years of Tree Adoption Uganda's mission to reforest and conserve our environment on the 18th of June 2023 at Makerere University Rugby Grounds. For a decade, we have been engaging in various climate action activities, especially tree growing, as well as advocating for combined efforts to restore Uganda's ecosystem. And the results speak for themselves: healthier communities and a greener tomorrow. Join us in our anniversary celebrations and be part of the Change Run for Climate 2023. Tickets go for Uganda shillings 20,000. To participate, visit our website at www.treeadoptionuganda.org to learn more about our mission and how you can get involved. Let us continue to plant the seeds of change together with Tree Adoption Uganda.
Be alert. Do not share your Airtel Money PIN number with anyone. Airtel Uganda employees will never ask for your Airtel Money PIN number on call, SMS, or by email. All SIM card registrations, SIM card verifications, or SIM swaps are done at clearly branded Airtel shops and not on phone. To report any fraudulent activity, please call 100 immediately. The official calling number for Airtel promotions is 0200 100 100. Stay alert on Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
Live
from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome to the Good Morning Uganda agenda. Today, Thursday, 15th of June, 2023. My name is Philomena Masco, and I am with the two gentlemen, Robert and, of course, Felix, joining me. Well, today, like we did say earlier on, we are expecting to have the budget reading much later on today. Every second Thursday of June annually, that's when we do expect Ministry of Finance to come out and read the budget as we are going to be operating. And we know that the process has been long. Since last year, preparations have been underway. It's been scrutinized, it's been taken to different institutions. Parliament has had their fair share of say on this budget. Right now, at least what we know is that we are going to be operating on a 52.7 trillion budget for Uganda's economy 2023-2024. But also we know that different sectors have been allocated quite a fraction of these funds. And one thing, though, we have seen is that there have been quite a number of deliberate cuts because in the last couple of months, the permanent secretary, that is Gobi, came out to say that, well, the economy is not exactly doing the best and we have to minimize costs. And also seeing as Uganda as a country, we have quite a large debt gap that we have to keep servicing. It wouldn't be of shock that the biggest chunk of the budget will be headed towards that. But also very many questions are lingering. How are we going to finance this budget? Who is going to be doing the most part? We also know that institutions like Uganda Revenue Authority here have quite a very huge role to play in all of it. So we're going to be discussing some of these insights into the 2023-2024 national budget. Please be part of it and join us on our social media, Twitter, #UBCGMU. And again, make use of our WhatsApp platform 0709-602-592. Feel free to talk about it, as opposed to the conversations we're having earlier on. We're talking about not everybody should have a say in this, but I don't believe, I still insist, you should say something about it, because at the end of the day, if you're part of the people who are paying the taxes, the beneficiaries and contributing to it, so you must have a say in it. Uncle Bob here, I don't know if he's in total agreement with that. Robert, do you not agree that people should say something about this?
What I said earlier on, that a quiet fool may be mistaken to be wise. But one who has been mistaken to be wise, when they speak and speak out of ignorance, they expose how foolish they are. So, and then to summarize that, he who has not researched has no right to speak. So, and I remember one of the people I respect and honor so much, despite the fact that he left us on this planet Earth, and I believe is with the Lord. That is the late Barry Francis. He used to tell us when he was training us in the journalism class that that in journalism you must learn by the certain things that if I don't speak this, I don't die. Then, you know, the more the monkey climbs, the more it exposes its what? Finish that.
What?
The more the monkey climbs, the more it exposes its what?
Why do you want to expose that?
No. If it's climbing a tree and people are down and it goes up, there's something it is exposing. So some of these things, you find someone talk, the thing you say, budget, okay, I'm a taxpayer, Let me leave it at that.
Yes.
But don't come talk about money policy, this budget, that budget. No, unless you've had enough. But going back to the topic of discussion, that is the national budget for financial year 2023-2024. Now, first to note is we have an increase in this budget compared to the budget of financial year 2022-2023. That is one, you watching us. This time we have a bigger budget. The previous financial year, we had a budget of 48.13 trillion. And of course, remember, we are coming from COVID.
Yes.
Now, this year, we are having a budget of 52.7 trillion. That is what we expect to collect and how we plan to spend it. Because in a layman's language, what is a budget? A budget is your expected revenue and planned or proposed expenditure. And the difference between people, we may all be given the same amount of money, but how you use that money will determine how far you go. Philo, we can wake up and I decide to give Felix 10M and give you 10M. And give 10M to myself. Then all of us, how we spend that money will determine at the end of the day. Some will tell you, I don't see anything. Another one will tell you, I see. So, government of Uganda and the people of Uganda, because now the budget process is consultative. It begins from down, then up, and we see budget conferences. I hope Ugandans follow these in these town halls. It is no longer the previous years where Ministry of Finance and few, no, now it's all involving. And this one is program centered.
They don't just bring it onto you.
No,
yes.
That's why by the time the budget is going to be read, we know what it is. So this is the budget for the people of Uganda. And I've told you, it is an increment from 48.13 or 48.13 trillion, if you say it that way, to 52.7. Now, what does that mean to you? URA is now going to collect from you. What government expects to collect from us here and you watching us is a total of 29.7 trillion shillings. For this financial year coming, 2023-2024, 29.7 trillion, up from what? Previously, what was the target for URA? We had 25 trillion. Now, recently when I asked people from URA, they were optimistic, but by closure of the financial year, they will have made that 25. I don't know what has changed so much in our economy that now they anticipate to collect more. When even this one, they told us first quarter. Now we hope if people pay their tax and there's another VAT running to pay before so that we can get the balance of the monies. One, the budget was increased. Two, what government expects to collect from you has increased as well. Now, as these increase, don't forget that as of 30th June, our debt burden had clocked 86.6 trillion shillings. And when you look at the budget for this financial year, you're going to find out that we have a big chunk of the budget. You know, Uganda should not just get excited. We have a budget of 52.7. How much of this budget is going to do work?
And what kind of work actually
is
it
but
going to be
even first you look at, if you have this amount of money, how much of this are you going to spend on the budget? If you have a budget of 52.7 trillion, and out of that you're having 27.8 on debt servicing, a trillion, how much are you left with? This budget, even before you go further into breaking it, debt servicing is taking a big portion. Because we must pay these monies. We borrowed them, either I put them to right use, or nothing, we have to pay. Because a big chunk of our budget, we are expecting us to look for 29.7.
Yes.
To fund a budget of 52.7. Now, where are you going to get the rest of the money? Because for you, that is what you can get. You're able about to maybe finance about 58% of your budget. So meaning the rest of the budget, you're looking at grants, which are getting scarce as time goes by. And of course, we know with the passing of our anti-homosexual, so some of our colleagues who are very friendly to us may not give us grants because grants we don't pay back. Now, we are left to borrow. And when you go to borrow, you have what they call concessional and non-concessional loans. Non-concessional are more or less commercial loans. They could be quick to get, you pay in a very short period and with high interest. Now, those are the ones today we get from our brothers, the Chinese, Exim Bank, and what. Now, concessional loans, these ones you pay for a longer period of time. But they have hard terms. They may tell you, they'll look at you, right? They may look, but they are good loans. However, they are getting scarce because as day goes on, COVID made it that there is so much competition for these non-concessional loans. And don't forget that Uganda as a country, we are highly indebted. So no one would love to deal with a person who is highly indebted. So you find very few people going there for you. So the excitement, I've told you already, you have 27%, or you have debt servicing taking 27.8.
Yes.
Now,
that is more than half of the budget. Yes.
Now, that means out of this budget, even before you're going to breaking it, when I try to break later, is little money is left. Like you have about, if so much, you don't have even 70% of the budget that is going for service delivery. And even in addition, away from other, there's what we call recurring expenditure. That a big chunk of this budget, later I'll be breaking down, is going for salary, is going for these other facilities that enable government to do its work.
I mean, we have seen on several occasions where we say that the monies that we actually spend on ideal service delivery, it goes more into administration. We are looking more on the administration side. Will that be very helpful for us?
If you analyze this budget, Philo,
yes,
you have about only 27%. It is going for actual delivery of work.
Well, we are looking at the national budget 2023-2024, 52.7 trillion. That's where we are standing at. Of course, we know that several factions have to get monies. We have seen very many ministries complain before after initial slashes that were made to their budgets. And of course, at the end of the day, we were told that sometimes you may have to compromise and find how to work with the little you have. But there is one small group of people, well, it's not exactly small, one group of people that I am so worried for, Felix, that is the business community. Looking at our business community, it is largely dominated by the informal sector. First of all, we want to look at how this budget, if this budget will actually respond to some of their needs, or will it actually make the situation any worse. And we can't talk about the budget, we talk about the business community, and we'll leave out Uganda Revenue Authority. Now, we know they're thinking very fast on how they're going to, also make sure that they meet the money they're supposed to collect. We're looking at widening the tax bracket, especially in our informal business sector. Is this going to be achievable? And anyway, the business community, how is it going to be treated by this budget? As already we have seen, we're already seeing where it's lacking and where it's not. The business community, how does it survive all this?
And unfortunately, you're also threatening them not to talk about the budget. So the chirabos of this world are threatening the informal sector not to. But you're the ones you're targeting to be able to cover your cap, your revenue cap. So isn't that really dictator?
The informal sector, just sorry to interject, this is what happens. Why some of us, you see, Uganda have a population of about 45 million people, I want to believe. And when you make an assessment by URA, you may find that about 10 million of these people would qualify. Let me just finish my point. Okay. Would qualify to pay taxes. But what is happening, many Ugandans are not paying direct taxes. And URA this year, this financial year, made a milestone because now we have only 3.6 out of this population that are paying. Previously, you had about 1 point something. So the informal sector will still many of these who are not paying the taxes they would be paying, to be honest.
Now, in response to that and collaborated with what Philo asked, and also previously we did mention that when you talk about, as long as you mention the word budget, you must mention the word revenue. When you talk about the word revenue, there are things that are canonical for you to understand. One, it's such a pity, later on a shame, and very, very, very insulting that Uganda's 45 million people, out of those people, only about 2 million pay taxes.
Out of the 45 million?
Only
2 million.
But we are budgeting for 45
million.
But only 2 million are going to facilitate.
Now it is 3.6. Recent figures.
Comme ça. It's more or less, still within. Isn't that already a shame? Don't you think the burden we have put on these 3 million, now Robert says, to cater for the 45 million, there's already something wanting with the URA. Second, when you talk about taxation, there are essentials you must bring into play. For taxation to thrive, when you talk about collecting revenue, there are things you must trouble to ensure that are in place. One, taxes must be affordable. So you check yourselves as URA and whoever. Are the taxes, is the tax regime affordable? Relatively. Secondly, how a tax must be convenient. Conveniency, how convenient are these taxes? How convenient are the services of the Uganda Revenue Authority? And conveniency is intertwined in the aspect of avail in terms of closeness. Do I have to come from a beam to clear a car in Nakawa? But also when I get to Nakawa, how swift is it? Do I sit in a queue for 2 days? I have to book a motel and then come back tomorrow morning? How speedy? What is the public relations with the people who work there? When I make a phone call to consult about a tax, how quickly do they pick up the phone? The other side on the phone, how receptive are they?
Yes.
These things you don't want to talk for. You want to jump on the figures. They gave this to this. They gave this to this. But you must focus on where the money comes.
You have to treat them as such.
It's important for us to widen to these 2-3 million to get at least to about 7 million. Because if we have at least 7 million people on the grid of tax who are paying good taxes, we are good to go. But if you're struggling with these 2, Robert says now they're about 3, you're not good. That burden is too much. Philomena, they can't tell you that because you're the one who left the village to Kampala, you're going to take care of the clan. Even if you earn how, even if you're the best you cannot. Now, that's one of the highlights. Now, it means that we need to ask this tax guy that, hey, how about you look into these basic characteristics of an institution that collects revenue? How affordable are the taxes? When you come to, for example, pay as you earn, are the taxes levied, the percentages levied, pushing people to hide? Because people now are not paying these taxes. Why? Because some of the taxes are not affordable. When you kick out the informal sector because of affordability, for example, if you want to levy a tax, you can't say Chirawo is earning 2 million and the tax is 1.9. That ceases to be a tax. Affordability.
Yes.
Now, commonality. Are our tax regimes common? That as they apply to Chirabo, so do they apply to Felix? and let alone Philomena. Why do you think taxation, commonality and taxation regimes and styles or whatever is important? It is demotivating or motivating. Do people feel motivated to pay taxes? Because for you, interested in discussing the end result, budget, but where are we getting?
Yes.
That's why we always end up in debt.
And the process as well, we're not considering
Because we
that.
can cater, this money is small money, if we fix some of these things. But is the taxation regime common? Does Philo, do the tax guy press the eye when Philo comes? When Robert comes, they crack the whip? Those behaviors in taxation laws, policies, and whatever are demotivating. Now, that means people will opt for other ways against paying taxes. Thirdly, or the fourth point, how close are the products of taxation to the people? Philomena, when you pay billions of money annually, do you feel the relevancy?
Are you getting actually the
value
for the taxes you're actually paying? Yes.
Let me tell you honestly, you know, for you to discuss, have a good debate about the budget, you must have the debate about the source. Like the white man says, the one who pays,
the piper,
will determine the tune. If you ask URA today, how many people have we got on the grid of tax paying this year? Away from just rushing, we shall collect, but because they have very many campaigns. I've seen now they have introduced e-receipt, e-freeze, what. They're trying to be present. They have done campaigns all over. They're trying to come here. But what is the effect? Yes, how far have we gone with that? The more people we have, the more taxes we can collect. That is key. Secondly, let us go to the direct and indirect taxpayers. Where do we get more? Indirect or direct? Then that will open up our eyes. We must discuss revenue before we discuss allocations. It is foolhardy. In fact, it is.
But also allocations may determine revenue if they are right allocations.
Here's the thing, and that's what I'm saying, that you cannot start saying, tujja kugula enkota munana, tugula amatoke, abawo nyama, tugenda batirawo ne kabbiya. Basing on what?
With what money, if you don't have it in plan?
You get the point.
Yes.
So it's important as we discuss the budget, that is we must facilitate URA. We must help URA to be able to reach every corner of any transaction in this country. You talked about the informal sector. How do we help the informal? They put in place, I think, the URSB to register some of this. They're trying to put.
There's so much effort.
TIN numbers, what and what, but they are not. That's not enough. There's a lot of evading, corruption. Someone tells you, actually, the problems are in-house than outside there. Because Chirabo, a poor Felix, a poor Philomena, there's not much you can do about evade. Because when you buy sugar, you may try to play around with the direct taxes. But, okay, I think for me, the starting point is streamlining the revenue collection.
Would that
we need to support
but would
and
also
increase the number.
Yes. Would that also be the response to, because I saw somebody arguing that we have worked so hard for this budget to contribute to the budget.
But by we, meaning what?
The country
doesn't want to talk. Yes.
Even Chirabo doesn't want people to talk. He contributes a lot to
no, actually,
very many ways.
Just to set the record straight.
Yes.
I have no problem
about talking.
Talking.
Who talks?
What you say.
What you say is the problem I have.
Now, you know that attitude also is what keeps people away from contributing. That's why earlier I told you, let them speak.
Contribution may be very disastrous and useless.
And you see, no. Here's the thing, Robert. We can't determine. You see, we need people to understand that taxation is one of the best institutions for a country. Actually, a citizen who doesn't pay taxes is useless.
Very true.
We need people to understand. Let them speak. But on top of what they say, tell them that you should never be proud as a non-taxpayer. You're the problem of the country.
And you know what happens? What happens, not to be diverted.
Other people should be proud of paying taxes.
You find a person who doesn't view things or understand them the way you do. Now on the other side, that's why I say, who is speaking? What are you speaking? Is demoralizing people and telling them not to pay tax.
No.
Should such a person then speak?
That's wrong.
Yes. So that's why I believe in not everyone.
Yeah,
but also important, Felix mentioned something I liked so much. He said we should look at URA and empower Uganda Revenue Authority and support it to make sure they collect every tax.
Increase the grid, yes.
Because
they need
we have
to
very few people
expand on their
paying.
taxation
I must say they have
brackets.
done a great work, but there's still so much lacking. But also, in addition to that, we must get our priorities right when budgeting, because it's not the first budget that Uganda.
And I was about to ask, like, now that we have seen the budget, does it respond to the national priorities? And what are the priorities right now? Of course, putting into consideration the economy, the performance, the priorities we have, what are they? And does the national budget 2023-2024 respond directly to that? Or we could have, missed a step?
First, I'll look at there are a few programs, because now it's program-centered. And I'll mention, I may not go into the figures, because then we may take so long of the time we have. But we'll look at who takes the alliance share and who follows. Now, for the programs that were allocated money this financial year, top on agenda is human capital development. And in Kunda here, there are people who do proposals and what. Now, when we talk about human capital development taking so much, that means government is looking at how best can it improve the workforce, can it empower people to work more. That's where you're going to find money is going to skilling, money is going to help the informal sector to formalize them, monies that are going to allocated to some institutions to help people move. Second is governance and security. Now, this has been queried so many times. People saying, but you see, governance and security. However, some will tell you with absence of good governance and security, then all these may not work out. Then we have integrated transport infrastructure and services. That comes in number 4, taking about 4 trillion point something. Then private sector development. Now, when we talk about private sector development, we know that it's the private sector that grows any economy. Yes. So effective. Government may not do business, and you are in a liberalized economy. So you need to empower the private sector to get this level. Development, planning and implementation. This is also another sector there. Agro-industrialization. Now, this is where sometimes, in my opinion, I feel people argue that, you see, when you put money in other sectors, it has a trickle down to agriculture. And we don't deliberately focus on agriculture. Yet we go out and say our backbone is agriculture. You have about 60% of people in agriculture. They're in commercial, they're in subsistence agriculture. His Excellency calls it chenda chonka, something like that. So this should be then another priority. Not coming in about, this is number 6 there. Sustainable energy development. Then we have regional balance development. Then number 9 is legislation, oversight, and representation. Then we have sustainable urbanization and housing. We have sustainable petroleum development. So they list what government sees as priority programs. But the biggest challenge, Philo, as I talk about this budget, that when you analyze this budget very well, we have what we agreed upon, that is the National Development Plan. Now we are in National Development Plan, phase 3. When you get that document, because in my opinion, this should be the guiding document in even budgeting, but unfortunately, they are not so much in tandem. Where is our vision? What do you want to prioritize? And you come to what we've prioritized or amounts of money allocated in that sector. They are not in tandem. So that then shows that we may be like a family where people look at what are we eating tomorrow, But yet you have a master plan of where do we want to be by the end of this year. We said, this year we want to buy a plot. So any money we get, it should be that maybe 50% goes to account of saving for a plot. Now when we get money, we say, no, as we plan, we should plan to make a mega birthday. What have we put on the money to buy a plot? Nothing. Then we say, but we need to go to a better house. So you have a guiding document, but in the planning, it is not that way. And there it becomes a problem because you're addressing, we shall need this money to do this, to do that. But you had a guiding plan that you would say, these are the key. And if these are the key to the National Development Plan 3, then let it be reflected in our budget. Because we believe this document is going to get us to middle class, then it will get us, because we had technical people who sat and said, if we remove this journey, we shall get to where we are going.
Well, the Ministry of Finance had quite a number of things they wanted to share even before the reading of this budget, talking about how despite the domestic and international shocks that have come through for the economy, it's still showing some signs of resilience. They're also talking about how the inflation pressures are actually turning down, especially when it comes to the prudent monetary and fiscal policies they believe that are being put into place to ensure that the economy is stable. And they again continue to highlight some of their top and key priorities being increasing household income. They're looking at creation of jobs. They're looking at creating wealth, and they're saying these are some of the priorities they have in their financial year of 2023-2024. And I think it doesn't surprise us that we're seeing money going to projects like the PDM, quite a large chunk of money. Maybe again, we don't know how this, probably we are very optimistic that this, unlike other projects we have seen in the last couple of years, this could actually turn out so well. Even the other day when I was talking to Julius from CS Bag, he says, well, this could actually be a very good move coming in from government if they're looking at improving people's livelihoods right from the local level, as opposed to starting from the top. You start from the bottom. So they're very optimistic.
One,
yes,
a brief one. Sometimes officials from Ministry of Finance have their analytical data presented to us. Technically, it is okay.
Yes.
Practically,
that's where the problem
is. Where the problem comes. If you go to the ordinary person and tell them inflation has reduced, yes, one will tell you now fuel is no longer at 7,000 because there's now goods are so many, because they told us because of COVID raw materials now, of course, goods are there, so you no longer have to use a lot of money to purchase few commodities. But some of these statistics practically applicable. Then going to the parish development model, I also agree it is a very good thing, no doubt about it, a very good initiative. But I quickly add, we may not have learned from our mistakes, Philo. We may not have learned from our mistakes, because the biggest mistake we first made, we came up with a feeling and painted this is something totally new. You get it? So we assumed we are going to begin designing a piece of cloth, putting a design from a totally clean sheet. But at the end of the day, because what is unique are the 7 pillars, and then being that government planning and all this is going to start at the parish level. Then we talked about these other committees that are going to be, but we forgot that the foundation, yes, people tell now money is going to come on these accounts. Already we've registered a lot of complaints under the parish development model. When you go to the secretariat, we have files of investigation. Almost wherever you look, there has already been a bit of mishandling. Why? We thought this was something new, and maybe we assumed we are going to have angels run it. We forgot what are the challenges that such programs face. And I'm so scared to mention, but let me mention, that if the parish development model doesn't cause significant change, then many programs that are to come even after may never see the light of day. Because we gave this a lot of pomp, we gave it a lot of excitement, we had mindset change, and my brother here always would ask me, but Chira won't talk about mindset change. Whose mindset do you want to change? And me as an ambassador of parish development model, I would say we are going out there to tell people we have come to change. But at the end of the day,
but you went there, okay, right?
We went there at the end of the day. I saw that some of our comrades, the messengers, also needed mindset change. Because they're the ones who formed groups of themselves. Yet we are saying we want to change the ordinary Uganda. We want to transform the 39% who are out in the money economy to the money economy. So that was the biggest mistake we thought, that we want to have a design on Philo's nice yellow brows, but we forgot that there is already another design here. And now for us, we came with all this excitement. The parish development model may, if we don't go back and say what were our past mistakes, maybe a bomb that will blast us.
But maybe
before we get into all that, we have some feedback coming in here. There is a viewer saying that the government collects enough revenue, only that it has a lot of unnecessary liabilities. And it says, let the government reduce on its expenditure in terms of salaries by downsizing all the so-called government officials.
Expenditures could be
we remain with only few, and trust me, the renewal will be enough for us, even without external funding of the budget. So the issue here could be the liabilities and the expenditure.
Yeah, the latter is very much true.
The expenditure is a bit high.
It's not well aligned to what we have, but the fact that we collect enough is in my opinion, wouldn't qualify to be true. But if you may allow me, rejoin probably even as we part, you know, and just about allocations, if you're keen to note, when you look through this allocation, you'll be shocked that about 21.8 trillion is allocated to statutory expenditures. About 18 point something to treasury operations.
Yeah, about 6
so
goes to salaries,
now,
wages.
And no, that's probably, now you have another chunk that goes to, actually, you find that the amount of money left for what you call welfare, social welfare, administration and promotion is peanut. So when you hear the budget, 51 trillion, you think, wow.
Break it down.
But as I've told you, 21 trillion at point something is to statutory expenditures. Now, you go to treasury operations, it's about 18%. Then you go to paying gratuities, pension. Now, you can imagine that you're spending money on paying what we call unproductive expenses. You're spending on unproductive, because those are unproductive expenses.
Current expenses.
Those you're paying debts. Now, a big chunk of it, that's how. Now, you remain with very little
You remain
what we call production.
If you do
and yet, the heart of any country should be based on production expenses. How much do we put in activities that are going to make Ugandans better? Okay? When you talk about industrialization, what's going there? Training, vocational institutes and skills training, how much
human capital
we should be
given it
you can imagine
the human
you're
capital
spending
has,
on paying.
I think the biggest
it has the biggest role then by security.
And I have nothing against
I'm not quick to say, even in human capital development, we should not be excited of the figures given. How much of that is going to do the actual work? That's why I told you in a nutshell, you have only about 27% of the budget for development. Because we shall say, we are going to construct a training institution, we shall have Felix the principal, we shall have a car, we shall have this, then how much is going to machinery and this?
Here's the thing. I think for us, as we await the reading today, the speech and all that, it's also important for us to check ourselves and be honest to ourselves as a country, but later on as leaders. I think there's a lot of dishonesty when it comes to expenses, and this starts with how the money is allocated. Okay, there's a lot of dishonesty, and there's a word I want to use, but carefully. There's what you call malo. When we are spending money, we spend like, have you seen someone who has been poor from the village? When they get money, what are the first things they buy? So and so, they want to buy a new one. What's called these cars that are big? It's one family. Man, your family has one person, but you want to buy a van. Now that's Uganda. When you're forgetting about the sustainability of some so big. Yes, it's just like a hungry person when they go on a buffet. They want to take maybe atamani, you know, someone will take. So I think we need to bring to control our spending appetite, but also be intentional. And I want to use that word technically. Let's be intentional. Like Robert said earlier, this country is guided. I don't know why we never use these guidelines on how we should spend. We have the national objectives, okay? The national, the plan, the development plan. All these things, you have the manifesto of the NRM as a leading political party. We never tend to take time to be guided by some of these. Like the president was reading it in the State of the Nation. He almost was in disagreement with everything of the Minister of Finance. Because they don't tally with the vision of the party, yet it's the leading party. You're saying people should hold on in poverty for this long. The man is saying no. Then what's my use as a head of I believe the reverse. You get the point. So
I believe in poverty eradication and alleviation.
Yeah, we need to bring to contemplation these institutions that organize these documents. But it is not enough to discuss the budget allocations if we don't have a true discussion in monitoring and evaluating the execution of these budgetary allocations periodically. For example, Parliament should sit with all other institutions to evaluate quarterly. Okay, after 3 months, money has been released. Who does the evaluation? What will you do the next time we are allocating money?
What Parliament does,
for example,
it
the road
brings
issues. KCC has been given money, increased,
Yes.
I think about 66 billion to cater for. Now, can we put a team alongside these allocations? Can we put the Attorney General on spot to scrutinize the kind of agreements? Because it has been proved most recent that we have a lot of bogus agreements we get into as government institutions.
Yes.
For example, people who make roads and they are washed away in 3 days. Who does those agreements? Isn't there some sort of breach? Isn't this a breach? Who caters? Who follows up? So we need to be.
But also the repercussion to some of these
yes,
have to be
because, for example,
how many reports have we gotten from the Attorney General's office?
And what action is taken?
Then what's the action plan after that?
Last time we were having a
absolutely
consultative meeting with one of the government organizations. We were telling them, but you police be serious. When you make a contract, and there's simple things. I have many lawyers looming around these offices of these institutions. You can't make a contract, and the contractor is supposed to make a road that should last for say 20 years. And the road is washed away. It's full of ditches and graveyards, whatever, in the next 6 months. And we are supposed to go and ask for more money. Where is the other person? So this sort of laxity, the budget allocations could be small, but I always say, and as we read the budget, do we have the right people to assist us?
The laxity lies more in accountability, it lies more in transparency. Yeah, all these are elements that have to be put into consideration.
But also there's one area that as we talk about this budget, we are going to borrow. But for me, this is my big concern. Do we plan for our borrowing? Because we get money, then we take 2 years without implementing the program. Yet this money is accruing interest. At the end of the day, because you people, even the next financial year, we shall have to borrow money.
Yes.
And when you hit your threshold of borrowing, about 51%, you're not in a safe zone. We don't want to reach a point where we get money, where we get these loans, and we don't implement, then we service loans where we didn't deliver services. So we have to ensure that before we borrow, we have put in place the right procedures, that when we get this money, it is coming to work. There are many stagnant, there are many areas where we are paying back money, but it has not been put to proper use. And lastly, we must now walk the talk of finding corruption. This budget is coming. There are people who are seeing now arcades, who are seeing houses completed.
I hate to break it to you, but there is an official who said that corruption is also budgeted for. So it's unintentionally though.
It doesn't infringe on the budget. It's already catered for.
It's already catered for, and that's a very bad thing.
That's what I say. Not everyone should.
It's a very bad thing. But when you talk about borrowing, clearly as years go by, our debt burden continues to grow wider and wider, and our borrowing appetite continues to grow higher and higher. And in the long run, the sustainability of some of these loans is just very questionable, and we fail to meet all of this. And the more you borrow, definitely that means the bigger the chunk of the budget.
Your problem. You're the people who ask for a road when you have nothing to sell on that road.
Well,
you're the people who ask for districts. You're the people who ask for political institutions. Then you say cost of administration, a big cabinet, a big this.
Running a country, Robert, running a country is not a walk in the park. It's not a piece of cake.
People have ever eaten rats in this country.
Well, it's Good Morning Uganda. We have to leave it at that, but be sure that the budget will be read much later on today, and be part of it. Please, I do encourage Ugandans, please listen to that. But if you have a TV, you have electricity, you don't have any legitimate reason as to why you shouldn't follow up. And even if you're at work, when you come back, you can always follow up, because this is a budget that concerns you as a Ugandan. So please, please, please tune into UBC TV and listen to that. Well, we have Ruben Mpima coming in with sports updates, and he will tell us
the allocation.
Well, if you can make your way to the allocation part, we'll be very happy about that. My name is Philomena Masco. Have a wonderful and productive Thursday. Good morning, Uganda.
The Magical Egypt Tour 2023 is here. A heavenly miracle waiting across the natural and divine attractions of Egypt, such as Cairo, Giza Pyramids, Saqqara, Memphis, and many more that will offer the gift of a lifetime. The chance to unlock all of the hidden powers of mind and soul, gain the enlightenment of the past and the future, and develop the power of healing. Departure will be Friday 16th up to 23rd June 2023. Basic package starting at $1,200, 8 days and 7 nights. To register, come to go to